The moment Magnus Carlsen had fought for arrived not with dramatic confrontation, but with quiet confirmation from Dr. Chen. The last sleeper agent network has been neutralized. All major manipulation operations have been exposed and shut down. After months of battles against corruption, conspiracy, and systematic manipulation, the war for chess's soul was finally over. But as Magnus looked out at the peaceful Swiss mountains where it all began, he realized that victory was not an ending. It was the beginning of the most important work of his life. You see, what Magnus was about to discover would prove that defeating corruption is only half the battle. The real challenge lies in building something so fundamentally good that corruption can never take root again. And the global chess community was looking to him to lead that reconstruction with the same courage he had shown in exposing the conspiracy. Magnus stood in the conference room of the newly established International Chess Integrity Foundation, surrounded by the allies who had made victory possible. Anand reviewed reports from educational academies worldwide. Aronian coordinated expansion plans for integrity-based training programs. Even Hikaru participated remotely, his platform now serving as a model for authentic chess content creation. "The numbers are remarkable," Anand reported with quiet satisfaction. "We now have 847 educational academies operating in 73 countries, all based on the principles we developed during the resistance." The transformation had been swift once the manipulation networks were eliminated. Chess communities worldwide had embraced educational programs focused on character development, independent thinking, and authentic competition. Young players who had been exposed to propaganda were responding enthusiastically to teaching methods that respected their intelligence and encouraged genuine growth. More importantly, Aronian added, "We're seeing the emergence of a new generation of chess leaders who understand that integrity isn't just about following rules. It's about building communities that bring out the best in everyone." Magnus examined reports from around the world that painted a picture of chess renaissance. Tournament participation was increasing as players regained confidence in competitive fairness. Educational chess programs in schools were expanding as teachers recognized the game's potential for developing critical thinking skills. Even corporate sponsors were returning as chess regained its reputation for authentic intellectual achievement. The media transformation has been equally significant, Hikaru reported from his stream setup. Content creators worldwide are adopting authenticity protocols voluntarily. They want to be part of something that helps people rather than manipulates them. The content authenticity movement had spread far beyond chess. Educational content across multiple subjects now included safeguards against manipulation, transparency about funding sources, and commitment to promoting independent thinking rather than specific conclusions. But Magnus understood that the most important changes were happening at the personal level. Players who had been trapped in Kasparov's network were rebuilding their careers based on authentic achievement. Young people who had been exposed to propaganda were learning to think critically about information sources and competitive environments. "Magnus," Dr. Chen said, presenting her final analysis of the global situation, "we need to discuss what comes next. The infrastructure for corruption has been dismantled, but maintaining integrity will require ongoing vigilance and continued leadership." Magnus had been thinking about this question for weeks. His role during the conspiracy had been clear: expose corruption, protect victims, defeat the network. But his role in rebuilding required different skills and a different kind of commitment. "I've made a decision," Magnus announced to the assembled group. "I'm retiring from competitive chess to focus full-time on educational leadership." The room fell silent as his words sank in. Magnus Carlsen, the greatest chess player of his generation, was choosing to walk away from competition at the height of his abilities to serve a larger purpose. "Magnus, you don't have to sacrifice your competitive career," Anand said gently. "We can build these institutions while you continue playing at the highest level." "That's exactly why this decision is important," Magnus replied. Young players need to see that there are things more valuable than individual achievement. If I continue competing while building educational programs, the message becomes mixed. But if I demonstrate complete commitment to education over personal glory, that sends a clear signal about what really matters. Magnus had recognized something that would define the next phase of chess development. The sport needed leaders who were willing to sacrifice personal advancement for community benefit. His retirement would serve as a powerful example of principled leadership that would influence how future generations thought about success and responsibility. There's another reason, Magnus continued. Competitive chess will rebuild itself naturally once integrity is restored. But educational systems require intentional construction and constant nurturing. That's where leadership is most needed right now. Over the following months, Magnus threw himself into educational work with the same intensity he had once applied to chess preparation. He traveled to academies worldwide, training teachers, developing curricula, and most importantly, inspiring young people to see chess as a tool for personal growth rather than just competitive achievement. The response has exceeded every expectation, Magnus reported during a global coordination meeting 6 months later. We're not just rebuilding chess education, we're creating a model for how any competitive activity can serve human development. The chess academies had become laboratories for educational innovation. Students learned not just chess tactics and strategy, but also ethical reasoning, cultural appreciation, and leadership skills. More importantly, they learned to question authority, think independently, and take responsibility for their communities. The most rewarding part, Aronian observed, is watching former victims of the conspiracy become teachers and mentors. They understand better than anyone why integrity matters. Players like Ding Liren had become powerful advocates for educational reform. Karjakin was training new tournament directors in Eastern Europe. Even some former enforcers had found redemption through educational service, their insider knowledge helping to create safeguards against future manipulation. Magnus, Anand said during one of their planning sessions, "What you've accomplished goes far beyond chess. You've demonstrated that individual excellence can be channeled into collective benefit without losing its power or meaning." The global chess community was transforming in ways that would have been impossible to imagine during the darkest days of the conspiracy. Tournament organizers competed to implement the highest integrity standards. Chess journalists investigated and exposed any hint of corruption. Most importantly, young players entered the chess world with confidence that their achievements would be authentic and their development would be supported. "There's something I need to share with all of you," Magnus said as they gathered for what would be their final formal resistance meeting. "When I started this fight, I thought I was trying to save chess from corruption. But what I learned is that chess was trying to save me from a much smaller vision of what my life could accomplish." Magnus looked around at the faces of people who had risked everything for principles they believed in. "Competitive success gave me a platform and resources, but using that platform to build something that serves others, that's given my life, meaning I never knew was possible." The war for chess's soul was over, but the work of nurturing that soul would continue indefinitely. Magnus had discovered that true victory isn't measured by defeating enemies, but by creating communities so healthy and resilient that enemies can't find purchase. The final report, Dr. Chen announced with a smile that had been absent during the conspiracy years, is that chess is not just surviving, it's thriving in ways that honor its highest potential. As Magnus prepared to dedicate the rest of his life to educational service, he reflected on how completely his understanding of success had changed. World championship titles had given him fame and satisfaction, but helping to rebuild chess based on integrity and authentic human development was giving him something far more valuable: the knowledge that his life was contributing to something larger and more important than individual achievement. The chess world was safe, not because its enemies had been defeated, but because its friends had built something worthy of protection. And Magnus Carlsen, no longer the world champion but now something greater, an educator, leader, and defender of human potential, was ready to spend whatever years remained ensuring that future generations would inherit a chess world even better than the one he had fought to save. The war was over. The building had begun. And for the first time in years, Magnus Carlsen was completely at peace with the path ahead.